Coming up
and it
next.
said you'll earn more money. Men today tend to think of marriage as a consumption item, as if it is a financial burden. But married men make, by some estimates, as much as 40% more money than comparative single men. Just saying. All right, number 6, that typically married people become richer because married people not only make more money, but they manage their money better and build more wealth. Number 5, another reason that marriage is good, the information says that marriage increases sexual fidelity. In other words, married people, according to this, don't cheat as much as single people, boyfriend, girlfriend. All right, you won't go bonkers? And simply that says that marriage is good for your mental health. Married men and women are less depressed, less anxious, and less psychologically distressed than single, divorced, or widowed people. Number 3, marriage is good because it will make you happy. For most people, the joys of the single life and of divorce are overrated. Overall, 40% of married people, compared with about a quarter of singles, say they are very happy with life in general. I'm Mama E, and I have been sent to help you navigate through some of life's challenges. You know, years ago I had gone through some things in my marriage, and I found that there was a real need to just have somebody to talk to. That's the advantage of having a mom. And because I've experienced some things, my goal, my hope, is to reach back and pull my children's generation and my grandchildren's generation and say to them, come on, you can make it. If I can warn you about the pitfalls that are ahead, I can maybe help you get around them so that you don't have to go through the same hurt and the same pain. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you. I'm looking forward to you getting to know me, and that's the purpose of this telecast, Ask Mama E. Hi everybody, this is Mama E coming to you with some more relevant information, I believe, that will help you in your marriage as well as other significant relationships. We shared last week some of what God has to say about marriage and what His will is. I thought that today perhaps I would share with you information from a secular or a scientific viewpoint, if you will. One of the things that I'm often reminded of is the scripture that says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And many times the very thing that we fight against learning, you know, we don't want to get information, but when we don't get the knowledge, it is impossible for you to get the desired results if in fact you choose not to get knowledge. I often say that if you're having an event and as long as we are entertained, people will come. But if we don't have chicken, and if we're not singing, we somehow seem to discard that information that we were going to get as relevant. So if you would, just maybe make a promise to yourself that every week, maybe once a month, I will learn one new thing. I think that it is unfortunate that when it comes to marital relationships, we don't put the energy and the effort into learning. Isn't it ironic that you have to study for almost everything? To get a driver's license, you have to pass a test. You know, if you're going to be in a certain work environment, you know, you are required to go to workshops and seminars. I actually had asked someone not long ago, you know, did you read such and such? What's the last book that you read? And they said, oh, Mama E, I really don't like to read. Well, if you were at work and the manager said, I need all employees to go for this workshop, and you're going to have to take this book and do homework assignments or whatever, you would more than likely do it. Why is that? You think that perhaps that has value, maybe? The reason that you'd be okay with reading a workbook because it relates to your income producing part of your life. So then maybe what we're saying then, if I don't want to go to a marriage seminar, or I don't want to participate in any workshop for marriage, or I don't go to any kind of marriage retreats, maybe it's because I don't value that. Maybe I don't think that it is of any benefit, not like the benefit of a paycheck that I'll get if I go to the workshop at work. I'm just saying. I wonder if when God said, my people perish for a lack of knowledge, could he also have been thinking about all of the things in his word that he desires for us if you would just learn? First, find out what his will is, and you do that by reading his word. His will is his word, you know? And then from there, ask the Holy Spirit to help you do it. Some things perhaps are not easy to do initially, you know? But if I make up my mind to do it, I pretty much can guarantee you that if it's within my power, I'll get it done. All right, so just make yourself a promise, not to Mama E, but to you. Make yourself a promise that you are going to designate time to read, to learn, and to research. All right, having said that, last week, as I said, we talked about what God says about marriage. And in one of the books that I've read, and it's been a little while, so let me give you a disclaimer that because this book was published quite a while ago, I don't know whether or not the findings in the book have changed. But my intent is to encourage you to go look it up yourself. This was a book called The Case for Marriage. And there was a woman, her name is Linda Waite, and she was on staff, I believe it was, at the University of Chicago. And she actually conducted surveys and studies to see whether or not marriage was actually good for us. So if you disagree with her findings, it's okay, you know, but don't disagree unless you have something to back up your disagreement with. How's that? Okay, so there were 10 reasons given in the case for marriage that indicated that marriage is good. The first says that marriage lowers the risk that both men and women will become victims of violence. And I thought that was interesting. I wondered why marriage would have anything to do with domestic violence or whatever. Anyway, the study showed that 2/3 of the acts of violence against women were committed not by husbands, but by boyfriends. Now, once again, don't argue with me. I'm just telling you what I read, okay? And then you conduct your own research. The second issue said that married people live longer and healthier lives. And I think there's probably some truth to that, you know, that my husband won't go to the doctor unless I bug him about it, you know. And perhaps it is that simple little fact that another person who cares about you might convince you to go to the eye doctor, go to the dentist, check on such and such, because they're in the house with you and they see the differences, okay? The next thing it said that marriage was good for your kids' life. Children lead healthier, longer lives if parents get and stay married. Now, let me also put a little pin there. We're not suggesting that children do better in a violent situation or in a situation where there is no love, okay? So we're not, in all information, don't you think, you know, we're going to be temperate. That's what the scripture says, be moderate. So don't go too far to the left or to the right, just giving you some information for you to think about. The next one caught my interest, and it said you'll earn more money. Men today tend to think of marriage as a consumption item, as if it is a financial burden. But married men make, by some estimates, as much as 40% more money than comparative single men. Just saying. All right, number 6, that typically married people become richer because people not only make more money, but they manage their money better and build more wealth. Number 5, another reason that marriage is good, the information says that marriage increases sexual fidelity. In other words, married people, according to this, don't cheat as much as single people, boyfriend, girlfriend. All right. You won't go bonkers? And simply that says that marriage is good for your mental health. Married men and women are less depressed, less anxious, and less psychologically distressed than single, divorced, or widowed people. Number 3, marriage is good because it will make you happy. For most people, the joys of the single life and of divorce are overrated. Overall, 40% of married people, compared with about a quarter of singles, say they are very happy with life in general. Lastly, your kids will love you more. Divorce weakens the bonds between parents and children over the long run. Adult children, listen to this, adult children of divorce describe relationships with both their mother and father less positive. So that means that even adults who grew up with both parents, when divorce entered into the picture, that it changed the perception of those adult children about marriage. I know some things from a first-hand standpoint that really give some credence to that statement. We're going to break for just a moment and allow our sponsor to have a few words, and we'll be right back to continue this discussion.
Ask Mama E is on the web at www.ask-mama-e.org. Hopefully you're enjoying Ask Mama E Show. If you would like more relationship tips or to get more information on programming information for this particular show, maybe you need tips on a better relationship or information about guests that appears on this show, please go to our website at www.ask-mama-e.org. Remember, Mama E is listener support. You can support this broadcast by going to Cash App, Sakis, and giving a donation today.
You know, before we continue, I did want to make mention of our Facebook page as well as our website so that you can stay in touch with me. The Facebook page, of course, is Ask Mama E. Mama spelled M-A-M-A. You know, different areas of the country, we do it differently, but I chose to use the spelling M-A-M-A. So Ask Mama E is my Facebook address. The website is www.ask-mama-e.org. Now, you know I'm a grandmother, right? So much of the social media stuff and all of the things that my children's generation might do, I kind of have to work toward it. I have to think about it. So we'll make sure that we give you that information again before we leave. But AskMamaE.org is the website, Ask-Mama-E, okay? And then you can always find me on Facebook, also under Ask Mama E. All right, so let's continue our discussion of why marriage is still considered to be a good thing. We covered several of the information data that was given through A Case for Marriage. And again, you can pick the book up yourselves or just find other sources. Just Google it. You know, you can find everything else. So find out then, is the fact that we hear that marriage is not relevant anymore? You know, many of us make decisions for our lives based on what Hollywood says. We watch movies, we watch reality TV, and then we base the decisions that we're going to make based on what the director or the producer of the television show said or suggested. Might I say to you that even though they call it reality, it's not, because when the show goes off, reality sets in. And if you've made decisions to just move on to a new person, and I hear that a lot, you know, Mama E, I just decided to just move on. And I guess I'd like to know, move on where? And what are you taking with you when you move on? And so people have gone through relationship after relationship. They've made no real change. Nothing significant has happened to make them better for the next person. And so when you say you are moving on, the likelihood really is that you're stuck. Because you failed to make any changes to what created the chaos in the last relationship, which means that very likely you'll bring that with you into the new relationship. So don't take everything at face value that people say really works. You know, they make a big to-do about certain celebrities and athletes getting married, and well, and that's great, that's great. But if you try to pattern your life based on the little snippet of information that you got through entertainment tonight, I don't know if that's going to really work for you, because you didn't have all the information when you made the decision. All right, so for people who think that marriage is really not important, that we just can go from bed to bed, man to man, woman to what, and we keep moving without making any change. We never invite the third person, God, into the relationship, so that we never investigate what I can do differently. I think that as long as we keep saying that I know how to do this without getting any more information, we'll keep making the same mistakes. One interesting fact that I read and I thought I'd share with you, when people decide whether or not they're going to stay and make the marriage better, maybe instead of jumping out of the boat quite so quickly, this fact or this data might help you make the decision to stay in it. It says, what proportion of unhappily married couples who stick it out stay miserable? Listen to the answer. The latest data shows that within 5 years, just 12% of very unhappily married couples who stuck it out were still unhappy. In other words, I said I was miserable in my marriage, but I chose to stay in it. And at the end of 5 years, only 12%, which means what, 88%, were the people who, after deciding to stay, could say that they were no longer unhappy. What does that say to us? You know, that has to mean something. Did it mean that I decided that I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna do what it takes to make this relationship work, as opposed to bailing out, throwing in the towel, quitting? Maybe the statistics say that if I make up my mind, if I choose, and I'm not talking about staying in hurtful relationships. You know, I'm not suggesting that you stay regardless, but I just have found in my experience that many times the decisions we make to quit, to bail out, to throw in the towel, really were not significant at all. You know, when I even look back at some of the things that my husband and I argued about in our younger days, really, Stell, when you argue because your husband didn't hang his washcloth off, that's one of my favorite stories, and I'll share it perhaps another time. Really? I have decided that if this is not going to be discussed on my obituary, that it's not worth fighting over toothpaste, fighting over washcloths. You didn't hang the towel up the way I like it. So many of the reasons that we give ourselves for ending relationships, and not just relationships, ending marriage, we don't stop to look at what the outcome is going to be. How is it going to affect your children? How is it even going to affect your health? What is it going to do to life as you know it down the road? I very often ask couples, where do you see yourself 20 years from now? Where do you see yourself 30 years from now? It takes work to do that. It takes effort, and above all, it takes a well-made-up mind. So my suggestion is that you seek the Lord first, particularly if you are a believer. It's hard for me to really understand how two believers, nobody will shut up long enough to pray. Nobody will decide, let the Holy Spirit help us with this. So that if you make up your mind that marriage is worth it, that 20 years from now, I'll be so glad that I stayed. That when I look back over and I see my children in healthy relationships, that they grew up and got married and had healthy relationships, it will be worth it. Can I just suggest then that barring circumstances that are just unbearable, and you'll know, I am not suggesting to you that I have all the answers. I would never attempt to tell anyone when to stay and when to go. But I would say that unless you are convinced that you've done everything that you could do, don't spend a lot of time on what they should have done, because you're not responsible for that. Marriage really does matter. I know that I don't have a lot of people who agree with me, and that's okay. It's okay. But in the long run, if I look at what God's plan was, I just don't think he would have created. Long before God said, upon this rock I'll build my church, he created Adam and Eve. He created family before he told Peter, upon this rock. So then when we look at what his intent was, is it possible that the plan that God had for the world that he created would depend on men and women coming together, obeying him, and raising godly children so that the world would perpetually be existing in the way that God intended? I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail as we proceed later on with future telecasts. And again, if you'd like to reach me, you can reach me. My Facebook page is Ask Mama E. You can reach me by email at askmama.e@gmail.com. And we'll share that information with you so that you'll always be able to reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you whenever time permits. In the meantime, just be encouraged. Know that there's a great plan for your life. Know that God has his desire and his will for you is that you have abundant life. We'll look forward to sharing with you again real soon. This is Ask Mama E.
So we've come to the end of another telecast. My hope and my prayer is that something was said today that will give you encouragement. I know you were thinking that nobody understood. Certainly, I don't even know you. And you're thinking, how did she know? Well, it's because I've experienced much of what you're going through. Won't you plan to join me every week at the same time as we work our way through some of those issues that have really been giving you trouble? Believe me, you're going to be okay. Just believe. You can I make a promise to you that it's going to be okay. Just ask Mama E.
This broadcast has been provided to you by In Him Marriage and Family Ministry. Remember, this broadcast is listener supported. Your financial assistance would be greatly appreciated. You can give immediately by Cash App Sakis, or you can feel free to go to our website at www.ask-mama-e.org. You may reach us by telephone at 904-402-0086. You may write us or mail gifts of support to Ask Mama E. In Him Marriage and Family Ministry, Inc., P.O. Box 43255, Jacksonville, Florida 32203.
Here is
Women
a
that
sneak
have
preview.
been unhappy in their marriage for quite some time. They've been sharing with their spouses their concerns. Let's go do something about it. Maybe that wasn't adhered to or acknowledged by their spouse. And so if they are raising children, they serve their families. They raise their children. Children leave the nest.
Yes.
Wife serves the husband with divorce papers.
Wow.
She's been planning this for quite some time.
Yeah.
And the husband is shocked. I
Yes.
thought we were good. What
Yeah.
happened? You know, all these years, I didn't know you weren't happy. And she's like,
Yeah.
I've been telling you for years.
Right,
Well,
right.
at that point, he's willing to do whatever is necessary
Yes,
to keep
yes.
her and to work on the marriage.
Right.
But by that point, statistically speaking, most of the time it's too late.
It's too late.
Because she was mentally and emotionally gone a long time ago.
Yeah. And see, the very thought that the husband was shocked says something about that relationship.
Yes.
You know, did you not hear? Did I not say? You know,
Or were
how
you
do
not
you
willing?
live? Yes. So, and very often I applaud men who come to my marriage functions.
Yes.
Because so many of them are not teachable. They've decided that they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they know how to please her when it comes to intimacy. And nobody ever asked, you know, and maybe you did a great job with the other relationships you had, but I'm not that.
Right.
You know? And so in many cases, we can get, and I hate to just call us bullheaded, but in many cases, we bring to the relationship what Uncle Joe did.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
when I ask people to give me examples of their role models,
Yes.
Uncle Joe, the man on the corner, you know, I watched this really good movie. So really you had no basis
That's
for
right.
what you brought.
Absolutely.
You know?
Or it was, I thought I was just responsible to be, all my responsibility was
Provider.
a good provider.
Yes.
That was all that I
Yes.
needed to
Yes.
do.
Right.
And if you weren't raised in a home where you saw a healthy marriage,
Yes.
or there
Right.
were no healthy marriages within your sphere of influence,
Yes.
then who do you look to? Where is that standard for
Yes.
you? My husband was raised by a single mother, but there was the village.
Right.
That was his grandfather who was married to his grandmother.
Uh-huh.
That was his uncle who was married to his aunt.
Right.
So he had that in his community, and so he knew what he wanted marriage to look like.
Okay.
Yes.
But suppose you didn't have those images, you know? And in many cases,
Yeah.
let's be honest, many cases our boys grew up on the corner and they learned while they were shooting dice, you know? And in many cases, I think because we think we know, I very often ask couples when they're planning marriage, one of my first questions is, so tell me what a good husband is.
Oh, that's good.
And most of our men
Yes.
say a good provider. My next question is provide what? Well, I'm gonna keep a roof over her head. I said, was she not living in a house when you met her? Did she not have a roof over her head? So it stands to reason she didn't need you to provide that. She already had it.
Yes.
Okay? Chances are she was eating. Okay?
Yes.
So if your whole purpose is to make sure you provide those tangible things, something's gonna happen at some point because you're trying to replace her dad. Okay? And so if we will stop and think that I need to provide some things other than, you know,
Oh, Mama
maybe
E.
we could even ask, what can I provide?
What is it that you need?
Yeah.
And we talk
Yeah.
about that at the relationship place. People feel love when their needs are met.
Wow.
Okay? Well,
Okay.
then how do I know what your needs are if I don't ask you and or you don't tell me?
Yeah.